So, this incident happened in Sogndal, Norway. My guests on this month's episode went out with a good ski buddy to ski some good snow. They started from sea level and toured way up the mountain. They had a pretty steady ski tour and headed up on the most direct route. The weather did change, and the higher they got, the worse the snow became. At this point, an unfortunate event occurred, but I'm going to let him tell you the entire story. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ashley. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and thanks to everyone out there sharing their stories. It's really helpful and inspirational as well to listen into that. So my name is Per. I'm Swede, born and raised in Sweden. Always had sort of an outdoor lifestyle, but it came into, always touched on climbing and over the years, but last few years it's become a little bit more serious. So since the last 8 or 10 years, maybe. Also a keen skier, likes kayaking, anything pretty much outdoors. That gets me out of the office where I spend a lot of time as well, obviously, is working in front of the computer. So I live really close to the sea on the west side of Gothenburg, or on Sweden in Gothenburg. So sharing a trip that we did over to Norway a few years back now. It's 2022 where that whole episode happened. We're a group of friends that goes on ski touring trips and been to Norway to a place called Sogndal quite a few times. And this was really leading up to, I guess it was a midlife crisis, that I decided to go to Nepal and climb in 2022. And I accidentally in 21 broke my ankle climbing as well. It's not a very exciting story. It was just a clumsy mistake, to be honest. So this ski trip in 2022 was really sort of to test the abilities if I was back in shape after that, breaking the ankle, and making sure that I feel comfortable in the mountains before heading off to Nepal. So it was a good spring ski trip planned with friends. It ended up just being me and a friend called Frederick who joined there. We went across to Norway into Sogndal, which is sort of a really nice ski area, quite remote, lots of high peaks. The altitude is not super high, it's about 2,000 meters. But the great thing is you start from the beach pretty much. You start from the Norwegian fjords and you walk straight up onto the mountains, which is really neat. And you can sort of see the seaside when you ski down. It's absolutely amazing. So we try to go there at least once a year, usually end of the season, because April, May, you'll still have good snow in those areas.
Sounds like a lot like sort of Southeast Alaska.
Yeah, I can imagine, just having that sea view while you're skiing is really special. So 2022, end of April, it was April 29th, actually, this ordeal happened. But the day before we came up and strapped our skis and went up. It was a pretty poor day. And we climbed through some really wet weather and came up to almost to the top where we were aiming. It was just too bad weather. So we just turned around, came down, a bit bummed out, to be honest, because, the snow was shit and then the weather was crap. You couldn't see anything. The wind was bad. So we, went back home to a place that we rented. I was like, what are we going to do for tomorrow? It's like, it has to be something special. So we, started to do the recon on what was around. And we found a place which is, it's a really nice outing, but it's long. It's about 1,800 meters of altitude, probably 6-7 hours to the top. So it's a big day. So we just, okay, so we missed the first day, so we really want to go there. And better weather. It was still quite wet, but a bit colder than the day before. So we used about 3 or 4 hours having a really nice sort of steady climb up the mountainside. Came to sort of an intersection where you could do a direct route up or go around. And the weather started to turn a little bit, so it came a bit cloudy again. And so we just decided on the direct route, in hindsight, not a very good idea, but we went on to the steep sections. Yeah, made our way up another hour or so, but the snow got harder and harder and harder just because of the wet weather the day before and the cold when you got some altitude. So about 1,300 meters, it was rock solid. It was really, really hard. So we started to sort of traverse back and forth a little bit to look for better patches of snow. Couldn't really find it, and we moved over and over out to one of the edges, and it got really steep. So we started to count. So, do we want to be here? Is this too steep? Should we turn around? I was like, let's go for a little bit more, and it just got worse. So,
but you guys were like talking about that on the way up, like you were having that. You were actually having that conversation with each other as a group, or were you just thinking that in your heads?
No, we actually talked about it, saying, this is not great, but let's see where we get to. We might need to turn around. And we came, went as far out to one side that we could just to check out what's on the other side. Is it going to sort of flatten out? And I came to a place where I was like, I didn't have my ice axe out. I was like, probably should get my ice axe out because this is not great. But I was like really awkward. I had it on my backpack, which is, probably one of the learnings for later in the show as well to get back to. But I asked Frederick, can you undo my ice axe just so and he said, yeah, but can you just turn around and come back? I was like, yeah, no problem. So I stepped up. I did sort of the B step around, trying just to turn around with. And just as I got turned back, my lower ski slipped. So it slipped under me and it slipped out. And I, since the heels are loose, I fell on top of the skis, which was, so I just started to slide down. I only had my ski poles and I started on my belly, sliding down on top of my skis. So just down the slope. And we were aware that at the end of that slope, there was a cliff. So it wasn't a great place to be. And I remember sort of trying to scramble with my poles, trying to get something that sort of rested my fall a little bit. And as I said, I didn't have my ice axe out. And I came down to the cliffside. I was like, this is not good. I remember thinking, this is not good. And I dropped off the cliff.
Like, about how tall was the cliff?
So I fell down about 8 meters, so 20, 30 feet, something like that.
8 times 3, 24-ish feet, 30 feet. Mm-hmm.
And I remember falling. I remember when I landed. And I landed on a shelf and then fell off the next one as well, which is about 5 meters down. So it's about 15 feet more. I don't remember any of that, but, I can sort of see the trajectory afterwards. So I remember falling off thinking, this is not good. This is really not good. And that sort of poof, when I landed, obviously I fell down, fell off the next cliff as well. The skis went everywhere, obviously. And I woke up about 15 minutes later, another 300 meters down the slope below this cliff, without skis. I remember waking up. I was like, what's this? I couldn't remember where I were. I didn't remember who I was with, what I was doing. And I sat there and it's like, it's probably not with my family. I'm probably not in a place like this alone. So I thought about my friends that usually go skiing with me. It's Michael and Frederick. I'm like, I'm probably with one of those guys. But I didn't know what happened, and I didn't know what I realized I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. So I tried to sit up, and I realized I had the avalanche backpack on, and it had ejected, so I had a big bubble around my head. And I sat there, and I started to realize this is really not very good, because I cannot get away from here. I can't stand up. I'm really hurting, and I don't know if I have anyone with me. So I started to call for help. No one, nothing happened. And and I got real scared, to be honest. This sounds like a cocky thing to say, but I'm not usually getting scared. But being there, realizing it's cold, it's weather is not great. I'm alone. I can't get away from here. It was a really hard time. That haunted me a little bit afterwards. Thank God Frederick came. I heard him starting like yelling for me. Maybe 10 minutes later. So he had to go around the whole mountain, and he came up to me. He sat down and he took his puffy jacket and put it across my shoulders, and he hugged me, and it's like, you're gonna be all right. I called for help. So what had happened was when I dropped over the cliff, he realized this is really not good. So he picked up his mobile phone and he called mountain rescue, telling roughly where we were, but he didn't have a GPS signal. He didn't have a device for a GPS. So he came down to me, and I had my GPS watch on me, so I had the coordinates. So he got the coordinates, but we had no reception. It was absolutely dead. So he had to go away. So he disappeared away again, left me there because I couldn't do anything, and we couldn't get hold of any.
So there was reception where he was at up higher in the mountain, but where you were at, there was no cell phone reception where you ended up landing.
Exactly. So he had to go around the mountains to find a signal, and he called in again and gave them the GPS signals. And yeah, I'll get back to that. But this was pure luck, because on his way down, he skied down afterwards. He had no signal for like 2 hours on the way down. So that was a guardian angel probably that gave us a little bit of a 4G signal or 5G or whatever it was. So in about 30 minutes or so, the Norwegian mountain rescue helicopter came and long lined me. So they sent a rescuer down. They couldn't land because it was quite steep where I was at as well. Long lined him down, strapped me on, and flew off for me and winched me up in the helicopter.
Before you left for this ski tour, or before you even left, and you left Sweden to go to Norway for this trip, did you guys input? Do you actually like search for the Norwegian search and rescue phone number contact and put that in your phone prior to your?
Yeah, we had that. We had that available, but only for that's probably one of the learnings. We only had it for we could only contact them with phone signal.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you actually like searched for that contact phone number, so you had that at least in your phone before you guys went on this trip.
Yeah, so we got a good guidebook for this area, which is sort of first page saying whatever, if something happens, this is what you do, this is who you call. And we actually had that book with us, so we had all of that available to us, luckily. So yeah, they flew off with me. Poor Frederick, my hero for life. He had to ski down, which was about, it probably took him about 2 hours. He had no reception whatsoever on the way down, which was, in hindsight, really, really scary. It was pure luck that he found some, where I fell and to actually give them the coordinates. So flew off. I was really, really not great in the helicopter. They gave me some really strong painkiller. I think they gave me fentanyl to stop cramping because I was sort of shaking and really bad. They cut all my clothes off and fixated my neck. And after I got all of these painkillers, I kind of passed away. Passed away was a bad word in English. I lost consciousness.
You passed out.
I passed out. That's right. Passed away was something worse, and took me down to one of the closest hospitals, which is, I wouldn't say they're used to mountain accidents, but it happens in that area. It's quite a frequently that they got preparation for that. So super professional. I can only remember when I came in, it was like 15 people waiting with different specialities, to sort out the trauma, which was absolutely amazing. It's really blurry, all of this, but I remember waking up when one of the doctors tried to stitch my head up because I had sort of lacerated my forehead and the back of my head, and my ear was sort of torn off, so it sort of just hung in a little bit of tissue. So this doctor tried to sort of stitch me up, and he was really, I don't know why, but he was in a really bad mood, and I kept fainting. So as soon as he set me up, I passed out again, and that obviously made him a bit worked up. So he took it out on the nurses, I think, and he sent 2 nurses out, and the third one was okay, and that proved, afterwards she told me she's actually also a doctor, but she served him during when he stitched me up. So it was a really, really weird. So after he'd done that, they stopped kind of the bleeding. A doctor came in and he looked at me. He's like, I got good news. You're alive. I got bad news. You've actually broken your neck. This is really serious. So that was a bit of a, okay. So going through what happened when I started to come around was, so I've broken my neck, my C7 vertebrae was broken, and I had really bad pain in my arm down. So because that's sort of the nerve trace for that. They stitched me up with about 60 stitches in my head and my ear. I've broken a rib and punctured the lung with that rib, and was 2 ligaments in my knee was off, and one was partially torn off, and I broken.
Oh my God.
So I was pretty knocked up. I was bad. I also funny story. I was everything like that. They took me into the room where I was gonna sleep. I fell asleep, and this nurse waked me up and said, just like, oh my God, what's happening? It's like, I looked next to me. It was like a big pool of blood on the bed. So they missed that I cracked my elbow open as well. And that started to bleed. So they kind of, can you roll over? And they had a doctor just stitching it up. And I was so out of it. So it was kind of, do whatever. so that, that was the end of the day. Really strange to wake up and realize that, that could have been so much worse. It's bad, but obviously it could have been so much worse. In the meanwhile, my friend Frederick had a real logistical nightmare because I had my car keys in one of my pockets.
Oh no.
So my car was like, and it's like a 12-hour drive from home. And we had one car and he couldn't move it. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And he got sort of lifted with some of the local people. And actually my other friend, Michael, he jumped in the car in Gothenburg and he drove the 10 hours up to Sogndal with a spare key to take the car back home. So that,
Another angel.
Another angel, yeah. He was due to be on the trip as well, but he had to cancel last minute. But that was unbelievable. But I stayed in that hospital then for about 2 weeks. And it was a real, I wanted to go home, but they couldn't fly me because of the punctured lung, and they didn't want to drive because they had to stay over on the way down. So it would have taken like 15-20 hours to get back to Gothenburg, and they didn't want to drive me in that. So it was a really long 2 weeks, to be honest, because I didn't really know when I could go back home.
It's so interesting that you couldn't fly home with a punctured lung, because airplanes, they're pressurized cabins. So I don't understand why.
2 weeks later, they sort of did x-rays and did all of this. And they said, you're good to fly, but they still flew me on very low altitude. So I'm not sure it's never thought about that, but I just accepted that at the time, even though I was frustrated not being able to go home and see my family. Because in Gothenburg, I had my wife and my son who were sort of worried to death. And every day they said, you can probably go home tomorrow. And every day they said, it's probably tomorrow again.
That's worse, because they're kind of giving you this false hope where you're like, okay, I've got this to look forward to. I can go see my, my partner and my child. But they're like, oh,
exactly.
Just kidding.
No. And it went, and that drove me mad. And I was like, that was tough on sort of, and say I broke down, but I was really sad one day. And this is where, Norway's fantastic. So they would kill me if they heard this. But so Sweden is really sort of, will treat you, will make you well. Norway is much more caring. So, this nurse came in and saw that I was really sad, and she sat down and was like, held my hand for like an hour. It's like, it's going to be all right. it's,
Another angel.
oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, but got back home at the end, stayed a few nights in Sweden. I could get up, I could take a little bit of a shower, even if I had to do it with my neck brace. So they put a neck brace on. They put to stabilize my knee as well, which I had. The neck brace was there for 13 weeks, so it actually healed itself, and also both my knee and the broken leg actually healed by itself. So they decided not to have surgery on it, even though it was really loose. But after a lot of rehab, that one is actually good again. So 2.5 weeks after the fall, I was back home. 4 weeks after the accident, I was back at the gym. That was my first sort of, I have to get back. Now I had that Nepal trip, obviously, in front of me. I was told I would never ski again by the doctors. You could do some recreational skiing maybe, but no real. And that, first it devastated me, and then it sort of, I'll show them kind of. So I went back to the gym really, really quick. I couldn't drive, I couldn't do anything. So I went back and forth with taxi. Called an Uber, so I had to take me to the gym to go work out. My wife obviously took me as well. My wife, my son, he was 8 at the time. And, he just, don't worry, Dad, I'll help you out. And he really, really helped me out, and my wife as well. He was such a fantastic kid to, grew up and said, son, I need to sort this with Dad. He's been absolutely amazing. Well, of course, my wife as well.
Another angel.
There are a few angels around me, huh? But I worked really hard on in the gym. Started running so this happened end of April. I started running. I think it was probably about this time, or a little bit earlier, beginning of November. I did my first sort of jogging strides and worked really hard. And around February time, I'm gonna give Nepal a try anyway. So I signed up to go to Nepal to say, I want to climb a mountain called Amadablam, which is, they say it's the Matterhorn of I don't know if that means anything for Americans, but it's the Matterhorn of
No, I know it does. To us mountaineers, it definitely does. Yeah.
maybe, yeah, it's a chocolate peak, but in Nepal. So really, I'm going to give it a try. And on the way of sort of getting back into shape, doing all of that stuff, so I probably need to try skiing again as well. So I went with the family for some recreational skiing. I was like, yeah, it works. Actually works. So I went in March, I think. This happened in the end of April, beginning of May. And then on the day, the 29th of April, I went back to the same mountain, same route, and went up. We didn't make the top that day either because the weather turned. But I actually stood there and looked at it exactly on the day, which was really special. Mixed feelings, but it's really cool to be there. I was back there this year as well, and that time I actually climbed it, so it's out of the way. Worked through the summer, and in October I took off to go to Nepal, and hiked up and climbed.
So a year and a half later.
Yeah, about 17 months, 16, 17 months after the accident, I was in Nepal, hiked up to Labush east, climbed that, and then back down to Amadablam. and climbed sort of the big adventure I've been waiting for a long time. So about 17, just over 17 months later from the accident, I stood on the top with Angdorji Sherpa, 6 o'clock in the morning. I know a friend of you was just after me as well. Jason Howell came up just after me, and he filmed actually the last steps. I think I sent you the movie, which is absolutely amazing, and stood up there, watched Everest in the background. So absolutely fantastic morning. So that was kind of, I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
I completed the mission. Came down. I was really happy about myself, and came back. And about a couple of months later, it's like, what's next? so now thinking about the next adventure, obviously, as always. So probably going to go back or I will go back to Nepal to give Everest a try.
Wow. Ooh.
So that's sort
What a
of
miracle.
the story continues. I will just make sure I don't hurt myself on the way.
Yeah. Otherwise, let's schedule another interview, but hopefully not.
Yeah. Hope not. I hope I never have the occasion to be on your podcast again, Ashley. I'll rather listen to it.
So what were the lessons learned?
Well, yeah, I think the whole communication bit, come prepared with sort of the rescue details. I wouldn't go again without a like Garmin InReach or something like that, which, because I was really lucky to have cell signal. Some of the new iPhones obviously got satellite signal as well, but make sure that you got some, because if it happens, you're so exposed. So that's probably one of them. If it gets, if the surface gets really hard, don't go steep. It is, that route would have been absolutely okay in good snow conditions, but in that frozen sort of been wet, froze over. It was like a slide down. So the smallest mistake was really, so that's another one. Don't push your luck when you got that kind of conditions, snow conditions. I would always keep my ice sacks available, because when you get into doesn't matter if it's on your backpack, because when you're in the situation, you don't want to fiddle around. You want to have it, just want to pull it from your strap on your backpack and get it out. You don't want it on the back of the backpack. So I think, communication, make sure, turn around if the snow conditions are poor. Don't go steep when it's hard. That sounds ridiculously obvious, but when you're there, it's like, I learned something that day, I'll tell you. And make sure to have your
Well, also, yeah, like it's like a scarcity thing, right? I mean, it's you guys traveled so far to get where you were standing, right? So it's like when we talk about heuristic traps, it's scarcity factor where you're like, man, it took us 15 hours to get here, and then however many hours, like 4 to 6 hours to get where we're standing from from sea level to 2,000 meters or wherever you guys were. So it's like, we're here, we have to do it because we took 20 hours to get here, then we had to wait a whole day, and then da 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 da. So it's like you want to push yourself because you might not ever get it again. And so, but it's so important to be like, man, the conditions, the weather's moving in, it's hard as a rock. I cannot get I cannot get an edge in this snowpack right now. So it's like, yeah, it's just really kind of accepting, not defeat, but accepting that, you want to live another day.
Oh, you're so right, Ashley. And the first day just added on to it. It was a crappy day, and the weather was bad. We didn't make it. Turned back, it's like bummed out when it came down, and then suddenly, you're in exactly what you're saying. You just want to, this is our job. We might have one day more, but then the season is over. It was like, yeah, we have to do it. but it's a high price that I have to do it, and you know you should you never regret to turn back. You know, it's never a regret to do that. And I mean, after if you're in an accident, you know, the only it's easier said than done as well, but make sure you get back into the gym. Make sure you start to move as quickly as possible. The body is amazing. It's absolutely amazing, but you need to put in the work to get it there as well.
What you just said, I really liked, never regret to turn back, because think about it. Like, what are you going to regret more, turning back or not being able to look into the eyes of your wife or see your 8-year-old son grow up and be the son that he is today? Like, what are you going to regret more? And so I think that's a really interesting point that you made that I really want to touch on, because there's such power in that statement. Like, never regret to turn back. What are you going to regret more? So when you're in that, when you're standing there and you're looking around and the conditions are kind of turning to shit, and you can't get an edge with your skis, in that moment, think about, what am I going to regret more?
No, and if you turn back at that point, you come down, you're a bit bummed out, you have a beer, you
Yeah.
don't remember the day. It was sort of a shitty day. So life goes on.
Yeah.
And it's nothing more than that, and you'll
It's
ski
nothing
another
more than
day.
that.
It's nothing more than that. This could have turned out just one of those. Yeah, it wasn't great, but we'll give it a try some other time. It actually turned out to be something that potentially could have been devastating for everyone near me. I was super lucky, obviously. I'm back. My body healed up, but it could have been so different. Could have been so different. And they prepared me for that different reality also in the hospital, where it's like, yeah, this is not great. This is really not great. And I live with a little bit of a memory of, because the inside of my thumb got no touch. Can't feel touch with the inside of my thumb, but that's the only thing, and that's nerve. There's a nerve damage, but that's the only thing. I kind of like reminding myself of touching that thumb a little bit, because it's just such a sobering thing to have, and it doesn't bother me in any, it's not any issue. It's just a reminder, which is, probably a reminder to, don't regret if you turn back, kind of. So yeah, that's that's the story. Actually, it's
Well, I had one more learning from your story. Um, Leave the car keys in a hidden spot at the car, right? I mean, because how many times have we, we yard sailed, and their pockets got ripped out and the keys got. I mean, it's never happened to me. Like, knock on wood. But I mean, yeah, leaving the car keys in a hidden spot somewhere in the car where everybody knows, hey, everyone, the keys are in the gas tank, or the keys are underneath the wheel well, or whatever. Um,
we had stashed gear on the way up, because we walked the first, there's no snow just by the seaside, so we actually had to hike the first sort of 100 meters or something like that, and then we stashed our shoes away and put the ski boots on. Might have well have left the key there. I put it in my front pocket on my pants, which I also had my phone in there. So it opened it and took some pictures, closed it. I forgot to close it. And it was just, it's somewhere up in that mountain. But the pain that Frederick and Michael had to go through to get my car back, it was absolutely horrendous. So no, that's a good learning as well. Make sure that communication and car keys, probably a good learning, apart from the gear, that you need to be, and don't regret to turn back.
well, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And gosh, you're a miracle. And I'm sure that your wife and your son are just so I'm grateful that it ended the way it did, because you sounded like you were pretty broken laying there. And it's also it's so amazing to hear the doctor said, you will never ski again, and you're like you had such tenacity. You're like, yes, I will. So that's just the power of it's so inspiring. Like, don't give up.
No, you're right, and thanks for that. It's I look back, I was like, holy crap, I did that. But as you said, I was broken. You wake up there and it's like, but yeah, well, you will never get well unless you clench your fist and get to it. That's the only thing you got.
So, what did you learn from this episode? Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. Thank you to Rocky Talkie and the American Alpine Institute for sponsoring this episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you want more content, head on over to Patreon and sign up. There are so many bonus episodes that you can learn from exclusive to Patreon supporters. I could not do this show without my Patreon supporters, so thank you so much. And as always, remember, play hard and be smart.